You're listening to Brandon Sports Talk, interviewing professional athletes and Paralympians and Olympians. And now for your professional athlete interview and your host, Brandon P. Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the Australian Olympian artistic swimmer, Rachel Pressure. How are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in the sport of artistic swimming?
So, I didn't actually know it was a sport available to me. My background or how I started was a little bit of gymnastics and a little bit of dancing. But what happened was my dancing company decided to move a little bit further away from home. And my mom was like, "Oh, I don't want to drive you 15 minutes every day just so you can dance around on a stage for 2 minutes in $100 costume." And I was like, a little sad, but I was like, okay, like she's the one driving me. But then, like the next week, mum finds an ad in the newspaper for synchronized swimming, and it's about an hour away. And mum's like, "Oh, this is new. Let's give it a try." And I did my first come and try. The coach loved my flexibility from dance and gymnastics. My mom taught people how to swim, so I knew how to swim and do some basic synchro stuff that I didn't know was basic synchro. And my coach was like, "I have to have her." And ever since then, mum's been driving me an hour to training every day to do a 2 minute routine and $100 costume. So
Of course, what was that transition like for you from going from dance and gymnastics over to artistic swimming?
it wasn't too much of a transition because in swimming, I didn't really enjoy always seeing a black line. In dance, I enjoyed being able to do some of the choreography, but I didn't find I was always coordinated enough. Like I felt like an Irish dancer, like my arms could move and my legs could move, but not at the same time. Um, and then gymnastics kind of gave me the proprioception for like flips and tumbling. I was only at a very basic level, mind you, but enough that when I went under the water, going upside down is a whole different experience than where your line is. So I think I kind of took elements from both of those skills and all of those loves, and synchro was just the perfect combination of swimming, dance, and gymnastics.
How was that feeling like for you getting to represent Australian and making the Australian national team?
It's a feeling like no other. Like I will say the sport of synchronized swimming in Australia is quite small. So when you make the team, everyone's really close. You know who did make it, who didn't. Like you're not chosen from thousands or hundreds. Like the choosing pool is about 20 to 30 girls. So you know each one of them, you've trained with them, you've been in the same pool, but being able to make that top 10, top eight is just, it's like the combination of years of hard work, being able to do it, and then to represent your country, knowing that there's so few people like you. It's just so unique. Like I like the sport of synchronizing because it's unique, and then to have that feeling of being like on that team is just I just can't even describe.
Of course, what was that feeling like for you getting to be a member of the Golden Mermaid Swimming Club?
Yeah, so my home club is the Gold Coast Mermaid Synchronized Swimming Club. Um, I've been with them since I started as a young swimmer at 9 years old, all the way even until this year in 2023. And most people have coaches in Australia that cycle through because the sport isn't as well developed. So we keep getting coaches internationally, but they're not used to, I'd say, the lifestyle of Australia and how different it is. but my coach, I was lucky enough that she coached the Beijing Olympic team and the London Olympic team. So even when I was learning synchro, I was surrounded by Olympians already, which was insane. Um, my coach is Ukrainian and definitely uses some of those Eastern European methods, which both good and bad, but she's softened up a little bit and she's now my synchro mum. I owe everything to her. And I would like to say that it's one of the best clubs in Australia, just in terms of how they know, how my coach knows things works, how the girls keep pulling in the talent. Like in 2008, 2012, and 2016, the majority of Olympians came from that synchronized swimming club. It's now started to even out with some people from Perth, West Coast Splash, and oh, I've forgotten the other one. That's something, and Melbourne as well. But for the majority of the time, Olympians are coming from the Gold Coast from my coach, and I'm so proud of that fact. And big shout out to the club.
In 2017, what was that experience like experiencing your first ever world championship and going to Budapest?
The Budapest World Championships in 2017, I still think is like a highlight of my career because the pool itself was built on top of a lake and next to a castle. So every time you dove in the warm-up pool, you just saw this European castle and you were amazed. It was definitely overwhelming. We'd done like small World Series and you'd compete against like maybe 10 or so countries. This was a World Championship. So you've got 30 other synchro teams, like top of the top of the world, best in their country, and you're sharing a pool space and like you're just like running them over, kicking them in their space, or getting in when technically you're not supposed to, tapping or counting underwater, which is what we do when you're not supposed to. Um, but getting to walk on that stage for the first time, and as well, the routine we were swimming was the same routine as the 2016 Australian Olympic team. So for me, that was very special, being able to swim an Olympic routine with previous Olympians on that team on a world stage. And as well, we were able to beat our longtime rivals of Egypt at that championships. And I just felt so proud of my team, of myself. My mom was there in the stands watching as well. Like most of the time during the routine, you're trying to stay present or you kind of block it out. But there was just one specific moment in the routine where I do remember looking in the crowd and being able to make eye contact with my mom. And it's just, usually it hurts during the routine, but I felt light as a feather.
Of course, in 2019, what was that experience like going back to that world championship and getting to compete?
Guangzhou in 2019 was our Olympic qualifiers for Australia. And Australia has a oceanic qualifier, so we just have to beat other oceanic countries to get our Olympic ticket. So for us, our biggest competitor was New Zealand. And this was my first qualifier, and a few other girls on the team, other ones had done Rio, so they were used to this feeling. But we knew that we'd been working hard. We knew that we had a good, strong routine, and individually, everyone was such a strong athlete, and we were ready to go, ready to push. And even though I know some of the girls on the New Zealand team because they are quite close and the synchro world is quite small, it was still an amazing feeling getting that score and knowing like I might not be going to the Olympics yet because I still have to trial for the team, but knowing that Australia is going again to the Olympics is just like, I know that I'm a part of history again, which is so amazing and so unique.
Of course, for you, what was that feeling like when you knew that you punched the ticket to make it to the Olympics?
Um, the Olympic trials process was, I'd say, one of the hardest like days of my life training wise. Um, just what we had to do in the trials itself, like we had no idea who was going to come out on top, who was going to be cut or anything like that. And we didn't get the results until a week after, I think. And I was at home and I just got the email saying, congratulations, you're on the Australian like Olympic team. And my mom was like pestering me all day to like tell her like as soon as I got it. And I was like, she's not here. She's gone out grocery shopping. So my dad came out and he's like, you're smiling. You made the team. And I'm like, yeah. And I gave him the biggest hug. And he's like, you have to tell mom, otherwise she's going to kill you straight away. And I was like, I know, I know, I know. So as soon as she came home, I let her know and we both just started crying.
Of course, for my listeners that don't know, how do you compete in artistic swimming versus synchronized swimming?
So synchronized swimming and artistic swimming are the same sport. Um, in 2017, after the World Championships, there was a big discussion about a name change to bring it more in line with artistic gymnastics because the biggest question is in synchronized swimming is sometimes we're not always synchronized. Um, and it's like we're synchronized with the music, not necessarily with each other all the time. A technical routine you are, a free routine you have more ability to be like that. Or sometimes you have solo events, so there's only one person. How can you be synchronized with another person? So artistic swimming as what's made it, I suppose, more palatable for people to think about. But as soon as someone says artistic swimming, everyone knows synchronized swimming, or you just say the one with the flower hats, or the nose peg, or Annette Kellerman, or anything like that to remind them. But it's the same sport. We've had a few more rule changes, but the name change is probably the biggest one, and I still refer to it as synchro.
Of course, after making that Olympic team and getting it announced, what was that training like preparing for the Olympics and preparing for your first Olympics?
So I went to the Tokyo 2021 Olympic Games. So my Olympic journey was even longer than most, and I'd say definitely way more unconventional than most. So in 2020, in February, I was announced on the Olympic team, and we were one of the first few sports who had selected their athletes. So we had our Olympic unveiling. We got these cute little Tokyo kimono jackets and our big Qantas flight ticket to Tokyo. And we had a big announcement. And during one of the interviews, someone asked, "Oh, what do you think of this COVID thing?" And our coach was like, "Oh, it'll pass. We'll be in lockdown, or we'll be here at the training center. It shouldn't affect us." It did. So that year, we were meant to do a lot of international competitions and camps. It was the first time we were going to do an international camp. We were going to go to INSEP in France for a week, learn some choreography, do a few changes. Um, it didn't end up happening as well. At that time, I'd actually broken my toe. And I want to say it was doing something cool, but it wasn't. I was literally running, and my coach said, "Okay, time to stop." And I tripped over my own foot and broke my pinky toe. So I was in a moon boot, and I was told that I wasn't going to be able to swim until right up before the Olympics. So actually hearing that COVID put us in lockdown and sent us home was actually a good recovery for me to make sure that I could build the strength back up in my toe and deal with some other underlying health problems that had caused it to be like that. Um, from there, because of the long waiting period, a few girls decided like they weren't happy with the coach that was on the team. They weren't happy with having to wait, having been on the team for so long, that they actually resigned from the team. So the reserves or the people that were follow up were asked to come onto the Olympic team. And that happened twice. Um, After that, our coach, she was removed by the board of Artistic Swimming Australia, and a new one was brought in place. Um, Fun fact, she's from Italy, and Australia wasn't opening borders at all. So by June, July, we were all doing our own personal training. Pools had opened back up. We were doing our own things. It was much, much better. By 2021, we were finally allowed to travel and go to camps. And we were located at the AIS in Canberra, which is like this big sport facility training centre. It was literally just artistic swimming and basketball who were there. And we had our assistant coach training us while we waited for our main coach, Lolly Monsco from Italy, to come. She had visa issues, quarantine issues. We didn't see our Olympic coach until April. The Olympics was in July. That's 3 months with a proper Olympic team coach to come in, make changes to a routine that you've already been swimming for, change the music, and change the choreography. In synchronized swimming, you will probably swim the same routine for like a year or 2 years. This is a new routine we're swimming for 3 months and going to the Olympics too. It was very unconventional, but we were such a strong team that we did manage to push through and pull it off. So that was our lead up to the Olympic Games, which I don't think people appreciate enough or didn't really realize about Team Australia. I mean, COVID affected everyone, but I think that was probably our biggest one.
Of course, for you, what was that feeling like when you did make the Olympic team and you were in Tokyo competing?
It was so interesting because we didn't have an audience. There was volunteers, and if there was a reserve from the other team, they were in the crowd, but it was like walking out to silence, whereas usually you're meant to be walking out to deafening screams, not hearing anything. And just hearing that silence in a way was also comforting because we hadn't competed in front of a crowd or an audience in over a year and a half. So in a way, it was like, oh, this is just like training. And it wasn't until we swam and we finished and we stood on the stage and it had Tokyo and we were just looking at each other like, we did it. We competed at the Olympics. Like, why? It didn't feel like it. It was such a weird feeling. We knew, but without the crowd or without having being able to see my mom, it just didn't feel 100% like the Olympics. Like it didn't feel real in a different way.
Of course, for you, what was that feeling like getting to put on your gear and seeing the Olympic rings on your gear?
The swimsuits that we wore, I absolutely love them. Like they were gorgeous. And then the fact that they have our little Australian emblem of the kangaroo and the emu and those five little rings on the side. Like I love them anyway without it, but I love them even more with. Um, I will say though, the preparation to compete for synchro, we put our hair in a tight bun and then we put cooking gelatin in our hair, like hot cooking gelatin, so to make it waterproof. That part of putting on the Olympic costume or outfit, I don't always enjoy as much. But putting on the swimsuit itself and taking a big group photo, that was that was everything.
Of course, while at the Olympics, what were some of your favorite memories and moments competing?
Oh boy, I think everything went by in a whirlwind. Um, I think the training pool that we had, any Olympic pool is just perfect. Like perfect temperature, you dive in, you feel amazing, you feel light. It's a weird thing. Swimmers will understand like when you dive in a pool and you feel heavy, or you dive in a pool and you tell there's a lot of chlorine. No, the Olympic pool was perfect. You could not wear goggles, and our coach made us not wear goggles for a full hour, and I didn't want to cry after. So I think one of my favorite parts is being able to swim in the pool and feel great, even if my body didn't always. Um, Being able to see different countries warm up and swim, and I think I got one of the best compliments of my life at the Olympics. So Russia is number one for synchro, like the top. And their coach, who's like the matriarch of synchro, she's been with the team for like 30 plus years. And she saw us training, and then afterwards she turned to my coach and said, "Is that girl one of ours? Is that girl Russian?" And she was referring to me because of my toe point and hyperextension, that she thought my legs were Russian, which is like it blew my mind. Like I was like, wow, she thinks I'm Russian. She thinks I'm that good just from my legs. So I think those are the two best things outside of competing that I really enjoyed. in the pool, and then otherwise the volunteers, the food, the transport, just everything. There's so much coming back to me the more I think about it. But yeah, there's so many things.
After the Olympics, what was that feeling like getting to add OLY behind your last name and being known as an Olympian?
Oh, hang on, you'll have to repeat. Sorry, my AirPods just died.
Of course,
Um, sorry.
after,
Uh, if you talk,
can you hear me?
yes, I can hear. Okay, sorry about that.
Okay. After the Olympics and coming back home, what was that feeling like getting to add OLY and being known as an Olympian?
Honestly, it didn't really hit for the longest time because Australian athletes, as soon as we finished competing, we had to fly home and quarantine for 2 weeks. So instead of flying home and getting this big Olympic welcome, I flew home, landed at the airport, hopped straight on a bus and went into a 2 week quarantine in a hotel. Um, I was catching up on uni as well because I'd already started trimester. So I was studying for my life. Um, I wasn't allowed to go outside my door. My window couldn't open, so I was inside. I was just having a bath every day to make sure that I was touching water. Um, but I think the first time I realized was when I had to submit an assignment, and I was like, "Oh, sorry, this is a bit late. I was just competing at Tokyo. I was just competing at the Olympic Games. Sorry if it's not the greatest." um, but afterwards, when we finally got out and I got to see mum and dad and everyone else from the family, it was just like the biggest hug and biggest warm welcome. And then going back to my home club and seeing my coach and all the girls that I coached as well, like that was just the biggest, warmest feeling. Um, I will say though as well, COVID was coming back into Australia, and where I live is right on the border of New South Wales and Queensland. People from the Gold Coast will understand because a lot of the Olympic celebrations in Brisbane were happening. I wasn't allowed to travel that far, or they were happening in Sydney. That's like a 2 hour flight or a 10-hour drive. I couldn't do that. So I missed out on a few Olympic celebrations. So I had to make do with some of my own.
Of course, what was that feeling like for you getting to live out your Olympic dream and making it to the Olympics?
I don't even know where to begin. It's just, I grew up watching the swimming on the TV, like just Matt Mitchum. I was watching the divers. I was watching any Olympic sport you possibly could imagine. My mum was like the biggest like sporting person. So she was always like, "Do you know this? Or did you see that happen?" And my dad was also very active and did a lot of things. So always hearing athletes in the Olympic thing and in Australia as well. Like Olympics is such a big push. Um, and then as well being able to train surrounded by Olympians, it's just like there was no question in my life that I wasn't going to the Olympics. Like it's around me so often. I'm training with Olympians. I'm swimming Olympic routines. I'm doing this. Like, and I would work hard on my own. I knew like um, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, but I knew that I was hardworking and I was talented. So being able to finally go, I did it. I'm at the Olympics. Like this is, it was for everyone who helped me get there and as well for myself. And it was just everything and more.
Of course, when you were in the Olympics, did you have that moment I made it moment? And what was that moment I made it moment like for you if you did?
I think during one of my swims, I didn't feel quite as happy as how one of the things I was meant to do didn't turn out. Um, and I think I felt really down after one of the swims. But at that point, like we were done, we were finished. But I think one of my biggest I made it moments actually was during the closing ceremony, where even though I had, okay, not everyone has the best 100% perfect swim or anything, but seeing the fireworks go off, seeing everyone walk into that stadium, being surrounded by a bunch of different athletes, seeing everyone on the Australian team who was left in the village just going, who cares? I did it. I swam. I still did something that not many people do. Who cares if it wasn't up to my standard? I know for everyone else back home, like it was amazing. Um, so seeing the fireworks go off in closing ceremony was that I made it moment. And then also the after party as well that you hear that happened as well. It's like, oh yeah, this is also the good part.
Who are some of the people that you look up to in the sport of artistic swimming?
I think the biggest person I look up to is my coach, Marina Collard. She was a swimmer from Ukraine and now was an Olympic coach, and now she's just a club coach and I think head of Queensland Australia. I'm not too sure, but she taught me everything, not only in synchro but also in life, and I love her. In the sport, especially. Ona Carbonell, she's a Spanish soloist. She's now part of the team. She's also had a baby, but just how she can dance and the music and flow in the water like it's made of nothing. Like she can just swim in and out of it like it's air. Another soloist from Belarus or Belarusia, Miss Casalina, I think. She's gorgeous to watch. Um, and then I love Team Mexico. They always come up with the best routines. Like I still remember seeing um, their combination routine in 2017 at the World Championships. It was clown. I've never seen a synchro routine that made me laugh, but still look impressive and cool as the Mexico team. Um, Now I'm actually working on cruise ships as a performer and synchronized swimmer, and I will say some of the synchronizers that I've met on cruise ships or even as other performers, they also inspire and push me now to be a better performer and athlete and artist. So big shout out to them as well.
Of course, what has that experience been like? Obviously, working on cruise ships and taking your time as an Olympian and what you have learned over to the cruise ship side.
It's such a different switch of the game because as an athlete, you're competitive with yourself, but also with your team. Like, even though you're on the same team and everyone has to be synchronized, it's still like, oh, I have to be the top athlete, or we have to be scoring this, or da da da. It's all numbers, and then big push for diet and taking care of yourself, and like 8, 9 hour training days, 6, 7 days a week. And as much as I love that, going on to cruise ships was like learning to take a step back, using the qualities that I've learned from my sport, but also learning from other disciplines. Like I'm in an aqua show that involves divers, and there are Olympic divers in there as well. They're high divers diving from 17-meter platforms. We've got dancers from all over the world who have such an incredible movement base in quality that often we're told, oh, synchro, can you match something that the dancers are doing? Which synchro can improv, but it's so different. And being able to pull from those different inspirations as an artist, I feel like I've become more free and more confident to have fun, be silly, and not worry about competing against my team because everyone's already here. No one's going anywhere. Um, so, and as well, we have aerialists on board, and I picked up a new passion of love for aerial, the Lyra, and any flying that I may get to do because it's just like synchro in the air, but I get to breathe, so it's even better.
Of course, what is that feeling like getting to meet your fans and having them ask for your autographs and photos with you?
um, it doesn't happen as often as you may think it does, but in the synchro world, especially when we came back and were able to have like a little celebration, just seeing little girls that I've coached after that, it was just like, oh, like I am an inspiration to the next generation. Like I was part of taking that step forward for them to come through and follow. And it's just like, even if they look up to me, I hope I'm setting a right example for them. But I feel incredibly honored anytime anyone asks even anything from me. It doesn't even have to be an autograph.
What are some of your future plans in the sport of artistic swimming?
um, as much as I love the sport and competing and being able to swim in a team of eight, in a duet, or as a solo. I actually competed at the Australian Nationals this year just to get that final push of the sport. I think I will not be going for another Olympic Games. The process for me now to join is a little bit too late. And I've found my career being able to do what I love on cruise ships as a performer. For the first time in my life, I get to be paid to do what I love on the national team. When I was on it, I was not being paid. I was paying to do the sport. For my Olympic year, I paid $5,000 and everything else is covered. Previous years, I've paid upwards of 10,000 a year, and I'm thankful to have scholarships and the support of the Queensland Academy of Sport, my university, Griffith University, and then as well my parents to help fund and get me there. But now I see my future as a performer being able to put 14 years of skills, hard work, world championships, Olympics, and put it into performing at sea and getting to show millions of people each year who come cruise the sport of synchronized swimming and how beautiful, how strong, how unique um, the sport is, but in a different light as a performer.
What has that transition been like going from being a synchronized swimmer to getting into performing?
For me, the biggest thing is working with different disciplines, especially dances. It's going to sound so stupid, but for my first contract, the music that they played, usually synchros count, they call it double time. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is the first time I've had a choreographer go, so we're going to count it slow, and then it's going to go da 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 da. And it's like, there's no way of counting it. You literally have to sing it. So for me, it was just broadening the musicality skills that I already have. I've learned how to drum as well because I know how to pick up a beat as a synchronized singer. I didn't know I could do that. Um, so definitely drawing on my own discipline, but trying other things out. And then as a performer as well, at a competition, usually you're performing for friends and family. As a performer, you're performing for total strangers, but you get to have that connection. You get to go into the audience. You get to make eye contact with them. And then so once you're out of the show, you're doing shift duties around. So you get to interact with the guests if they come up to you and they go, "Oh, are you one of the performers in the show? Or are you a synchronized swimmer?" And you get to have more of a connection, more validation for the hard work that you've done. And you're performing 6, 7 times a week versus I'm competing like 5, 6 times a year. So I'm getting to show my passion for the sport more often, give more love and receive more love as a performer than I think as a competitor. So,
What
yeah.
advice would you, what advice would you give those people that are looking to get into the sport of artistic swimming?
I would say be patient. Synchronized swimming is a sport that requires a whole list of skills from flexibility to dance to musicality, strength training, swimming, speed training, endurance training, skills, so much repetition of the most basic things, hundreds and thousands of hours in the pool. Like, it's a commitment to the sport and to yourself, and you may only see incremental growth per month, per year. I remember being at the same level out of the water from my knees for like a full year and a half before I was like, oh, I am improving. So be patient with yourself, trust the process, but know that you're doing something that once you learn enough and feel comfortable enough and you're able to do a routine, you're doing something that no one else can pick up just like that. or take a class and know how to dance after a month or know a choreography. No, you're doing something that you will know how to do for life.
What advice would you give those people that are looking to represent a national team, whether it's US, Canada, or Australian?
You have to be prepared for anything. You have to adapt to change, not only the schedule in the day, like, oh, the pool's broken, or we can't use the pool just yet, or we have to go here, or this is happening, or this person injured, so we have to modify. But also, um, you might have to move away from home, and you might have to do university away from home. So you have to understand what your priorities are, and if you're able to commit to something like that. For me, it was always no question. I love the sport, and I still love the sport, and I have a passion for it. So anything that I gave 100% of my energy to that. Yeah, I think that's probably it.
What advice would you give those people that are looking to go to the Olympics for the first time, like you have?
I say trust and talk to your teammates. They're there for a reason. They're in the same boat as you. Um, there's 8 of you in a team, so surely you can get along with at least one person. But also talk to your coach. You may think that your coach is like someone that you can't see outside of the pool, and honestly, sometimes you don't want to, or it's not good. But your coach is there to make you better. It may not feel like it sometimes, but they are. So talk to them, build that connection, that way they can trust you as an athlete, and you can trust them as a coach. Otherwise, it's just going to make your time in the pool feel horrible. It's going to make your time feel out of the pool even worse. So talk and trust your team and your support system as well if you don't know.
What advice would you give those athletes that were in the Olympics that are transitioning from the sport they love to life after the Olympics and after retirement?
This one is so hard, and I always think that there should always be more support for athletes doing this because it is always such a big high coming down from the Olympics, or they're not sure where to go. Most have a university degree lined up, or they're doing something in university that they're not quite sure of. I was really lucky that I was able to find this connection straight away. So I'm still doing the sport that I love, but doing something else where I'm not doing a traditional office job or customer service, kind of, but it's either very different. So advice that I'd say is still talk to your coach, because they've seen athletes do it over and over again. So they can at least give you some pathways or guideways or something that if you're not quite ready to leave the sport, maybe competitively you are, but you're not quite ready to let go of it yet, talk to your coach. They can find something there. But as well, take that break that you deserve. You've been training your whole life to do something. Take a month vacation, take that gap year from the sport, take that gap year wherever you want. Treat yourself a little, and then you'll find at the end of the day, you'll find another passion that you have and that you'll be able to make because you've got these skills and these qualities that you learned as an athlete to be hardworking, to be committed, on time, organized. That these qualities you can be able to transfer to any pathway that you find in your next life.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
You can find me on Instagram at Rachel21N, and that's pretty much it.
Thank you again, Rachel Pressure, for your interview, and best of luck in your future wherever it may hold you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Rachel Pressure, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you so much. See you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.